Hey guys, welcome back to today's class. So today we'll be talking about introduction to flowchart and wireframe. So today we're going to talk about everything related to flowcharts. How does this look? Where can we use it? And also same thing for wireframing. So this is how a flowchart actually look like. So whenever you see a diagram or an image like this, so you have it at the back of your mind that this is how a flowchart look like. Now this is also how a wireframe look like. So the first image I showed you is flowchart, and this particular image is wireframe. So whenever you see this image, just know that this is a wireframe. So now let's take a look at flowchart. Now let's take a look at flowchart first. Introduction to flowchart. Flowchart, UX flow or user flows. So as they are sometimes called, are diagram that display the complete path a user take when using a product. The user flow lay out the user's movement through the product, mapping out each and every step the users take from entry points right through to the final interaction. Now, you can call it user flow, you can call it UX flow, you can call it flow chart. In each any other in any of the ways, you can call it whatever you want to call it. So you can choose to call it UX flow, user flow, or flow chart. So I'm already used to the word calling it flowchart because I think this is a more popular and general name it is being called flowchart. So whenever you call it anyone, it doesn't matter as long as it is a flow, no problem. So it's actually a diagram that display the complete parts of a product from the beginning to the finish. That you as a user, or that your user, or that me also partake takes. It's just like a journey, just like a guide, it's just like a roadmap that your user take from the beginning of a project to the end of of the project, from the beginning of the starting point of your project to the final stage of your project. Flowcharts are variable tools in UX design for visualing mapping out flowcharts are variable tool in UX design for mapping out the user's journey through a digital product or system. They help designers and stakeholders to understand the sequence steps of a user will take to accomplish or reach a goal. So now this flowchart is just like a guide that will help your user, that will help your user, that will guide your user. It's just like a step for them to accomplish a goal on your project. In UX design, in user experience design, designers are designers use flowcharts mainly to plot how users may move through an interface such as an app to achieve their goals. For example, to purchase clothes online. When you want to purchase a clothes online, you have to search for the clothes, the particular brand, then select the size of clothes, then either you add to cart or you make payments immediately. You add your bank details, you add your bank details, you add your shipping address, and then you make payment, and then the item is brought to whatever shipping address you use. They describe the relationship between page or screens and show all the interactive possibility to the starting point, action required, moment of decision, and endpoint as user encounter and uses interface. They also aim to account for the variable factors that in fact that impact users interactions. Since flowcharts are highly visual, they are variable reference points throughout projects. So it is very, very important for you to carry out a flow chart before you can then proceed to the next stage. So now when you are trying to come up with an idea, you've okay, I want to work on this particular project, and then you start carrying out your experience method, your UX experience method. So what you need to do is you've tried to understand your users, you've know their pain points, and then you are now creating ideas. Now flowchart falls under where you are creating an ideas for them, where you have to say, okay, I'm going to think of how this user is going to navigate his or her way when trying to use this product. So that is where you have to sit down to come up with a flowchart diagram. Now remember that flowchart diagram is actually a complete path a user takes when using a product from the beginning to the ending, or maybe at the middle stage, or how, but just have it at the back of your mind that it is actually a complete path. It is a path, it is a roadmap, it is a navigation for your user to take when using that product. Now, why do we use flowchart? So why do we use flowchart? Why is it important that we use flowchart? Now let me explain to you why we use flowchart. Flowchart are essentials in UX design as they offer systematic approach to mapping out users interaction and experience within a digital product or system. By visualizing representing the user's flow, designers can gain insight into the user's journey, including their action, decisions, and potential pain points. This structured visualization allows for the identification of bottleneck or area of confusion, enable designer to refine the user's experience for good usabilities and satisfaction. Now, why we actually use flowchart as a designers? Now, it is part of the UX research method, because in research method you need to get to know your user, understand their pain points, and then try to come up with a solution for them where you're creating an idea for them. Now, for flowchart falls under that part, because when you understand your user, you get to know maybe their frustration or pain points, and now you want to create goals, you want to solve this problem for them. Flowchart actually falls under where you are creating an idea for them. Now you're creating an idea for them to have or creating a solution for them to have nice user experience, because if they actually complain to you about a problem similar to the project you are working on, you will not want them to experience that same problem. You want them to have nice experience when interacting with that product. So it is important you come up with a flow chart, a roadmap for them, so they can go through and actually have nice experience. Or it also affects the UI. You will want to know what size to place the button. Okay. Now moreover, flowchart serves as a variable communication tool. It is a communication tool for you to tell your team, oh, this is the way I came up with a flowchart for this particular project. What do you think? So it's actually a great tool where you have to collaborate with other team and explain to them, oh, this is an idea, and then your team is going to come up together and tell you, okay, if there are necessary place for you to make an adjustment, you can actually go ahead to make an adjustment. Now, moreover, flowchart serves as a variable communication tool, facilitating collaboration and alignment among cross-functional teams by providing a shared understanding of the intended user flow and interaction. This collaborative approach ensures that design decisions are informed and that the final product meet the needs and expectation of its users effectively. Though collaborative explosions and refinement of the flowchart, team can collectively identify opportunities for enhancement, address po ten tial usability issues, and ultimately deliver a more refined and great or user-centered product. However, the use of flowchart in UX design promotes communication by providing a shared visual language that that empowers team to work together, creating um exceptional user experience. So now flowchart, why we use flowchart is for us, it's actually a great communication tool where you have to communicate with your team, then you guys will come together to create good user experience for your user. Okay, it is also good why we come up with, it's just very very important why we come up with great user experience, because just like I said, if your user actually complain to you about similar project on what you're working on, how they are frustrated, you will not want them to have that same experience on your own product. You want them to have nice experience. So that is why you have to take your time to create or to make use of flowchart so that they will have nice experience. Type of flowchart. Now we have types of flowchart. UX flow, flow chart, user flow, any, you can call it any how you want to call it, can be used for all kinds of interface and web design, but certain types of flow chart are more valuable than others depending on what you are creating. Now, we have different kinds of we have different kinds of flow charts, and now each flow chart now are more valuable because it depends on what you are creating. Now we have task flow. Task flow focuses on one single feature or task a user can perform without showing other pathway. They are typically created when user enter at the same point and accomplish a task in the same way. They are usually linear charts used for tasks when users hasn't given options. Now what this actually means, now let's take a look at the example so I can explain to you what task flow look like. Now here is an example of task flow. So now let me explain this for you. Now task flow is like a single part, a single roadmap where your user um takes place, like perform, maybe they want to perform an action and they are not given any other option. Now an example here shows purchasing hoodie, the checkout section in your app for those people that buy some things online. So we have some online shop, we have Jumia, we have Konga, we have AliExpress, and we have other e-commerce platform out there. Now tax flow now comes in when you are trying to make payments. Let's say for example, you have selected the product you want, you have you are, let's say something that demand, select the size, you select the site. The next thing is you click on buy now. When you click on buy now, you click on, it takes you to checkout where you need to see the subtotal of your product. So once you see the subtotal, you add, it will show you maybe 0 naira for delivering fee, then you show your total um amount, and then you click on checkout. So when you click on checkout, it will now take you to a screen where you have to put your shipping details, maybe your house address, your office address, maybe whatever address you want to add where they will ship that item, for example that hoodie, to you. So once you put your shipping address and then you make payment, after it has shown you how much you are paying for delivering fee. If the delivering fee is free, then you have a 0 naira at that place. So that if you watch, this is one way or one particular part that you know that every user is actually going to perform when they want to make payment on that item. Same thing applies for the Telegram. Now you download Telegram, you must register an account as a new user, or you log in as an old user when next you come back using Telegram. You can see that it is one way that every user needs to perform. There is no way you can access Telegram without either logging in or signing or up. Now, same thing applies to your local bank app, where you download the app, you've put all the necessary information, all the requirements needed for you to create an account, and then you've created an account, you've made a transaction. Now you've transfer. Now you transfer, you get. Now one way is you have to register an account before you can access your bank app. And then once you are done making transaction, because some people might buy data, some people might buy airtime, some people might make transaction, some people might pay some utility bill. You can see that once I'm inside the app, I have every other option or every other tax that I want to partake. But one way when tax flow comes in is when you are going to register your account, because you need to register before you can access the app. You will need to log in before you can access the app. So that is where you know that this is one particular action or one particular method that you know that all your user must perform. So those things are known as tax flow. Okay. Now the next one is, so the next one we have is wire flow. Now what is wire flow? So now let's look at what is wire flow, which is the next part of flowchart. Wire flow, as the name suggested, wire flow combines wireframe and flowchart. Instead of using shape to convey movement, they use wireframe on each page, or we as a designer use wireframe on each page. Wire flow add page con ten t to UX flow, since what user can see on each screen signify the impact their experience through the product. Now look at an example of what a wire flow actually look like. Now the same example that we talked about, when you you select a product, you click on buy now as a button, it takes you to checkout. You see the total, or you can, if you choose to add more quantity, go ahead and add. But if you choose not to add more quantity, go ahead and click on checkout. So it takes you to your shipping screen, where you have to put your shipping details, your billing screen, where you have to put your shipping details, put all the necessary information required, and then you click on make payments, and then you can now track your order. Now you can choose to track your order, you can choose not to track your order. So this doesn't fall under tax flow. Okay. Now this is how a wire flow look like. Now if you take a look at this screen, you can see that on this particular place we have a button that say add to cart. Now this is a wire flow. Now this is wireframe. From the first image I showed you when we started this class, I showed you that anytime you see a design like this, without color, without image, just know that this is actually the skeletal or design, or skeleton UI design, which is known as wireframe. So this is a wireframe, and now wire flow is like a combination of wireframe and flowcharts. Okay, so now some people might call it prototype, but it is actually not prototype. You are just going to just map out or draw a sketch and say, okay, from year to year, from year to year, from year to year. Now, this particular one is showing the particular activity you need to perform on screen one, move to screen two. Now, you're not clicking the whole of the screen. You're clicking on a particular icon, particular element, such as the icon or the button, for you to take you to the next action to perform. Now, this is a wireframe that shows, when I click on add to cart, it takes me straight to card review. add to cart. So when you move to cart, then you will now see how many items that is on your cart. That is on your cart. So this place is actually a small um pop-up screen, something that actually came out. Now pop-up screen where you need to see how many items is on your cart. Do you choose to make payments now? And then when you click on checkout, it takes you to the checkout screen. Yeah, where you need to see the quantity of the particular item you are making payment for, price for per one. Then you see your subtotal. Then you see maybe your total, but then your shipping address, shipping fee are not being included because your shipping address has not been entered. And then you move straight to, when you click on this button on this screen, it takes you straight to this screen where you have to put your shipping address. Now this is actually how a wire flow looks like. It's not, the flow doesn't show the entire activity on the screen. It just show the entire flow, entire navigation, entire map of a particular element in a screen to the next screen and to the next screen. It doesn't pick the entire screen as a whole. You just pick the entire element or entire um entire element that we can just click on that particular screen. Okay, and it is always shown, or it is always drawn in wireframe pattern. Do you understand? So this is how a wire flow look like. So a wire flow, you just have it at the back of your mind. That a wire flow is just a combination of wireframe and flow charts. Okay, so wireframe is just where you have to pick the particular element you are clicking inside the screen to the next screen, and then pick the element from that screen B to the next screen, and the element from screen C to the next screen. Okay, so that is what wire flow actually look like. So the next one we have is flow charts. User flow charts analyze and map how a user will interact with your product as a whole. They are the same end goals, but user flow creates different paths and journeys to accomplish these goals and help identify different ways of journey competition. Now this is what a flow chart actually look like. So this is what a flowchart look like. A flowchart is like a map, that's a journey, that's a user's let's say a map that a user takes from the beginning to the end of the product. Let's say the whole activity. Let's say when I'm creating a savings app, so my whole journey that started from when I downloaded the app to every activity I'm going to perform. Do I have to fund my wallet? Yes, the flow is included. Do I have to add my bank details? The flow is included. Do I have to save? The flow is included. Do I have to take a loan? The flow is included. So whatever flow, whatever activities that we want to carry out on a particular app, our journey as a user, it is from the beginning to the end, and this is how it actually look like. So whenever you see an image like this, or maybe a diagram like this, just have it at the back of your mind that this is actually a flow chart. Because if you check from this image, it's showing start and then end and end and end here, and it also has different shape. So this is what a flow chart look like. So we have three types of flow chart. We have a task flow. Task flow is like a single roadmap, a single path that your user is going to follow. Like there is no option given. It is a compulsory path that they have to follow. We all know when it comes to checking out an item, when it comes to registering your account on any platform or on a mobile app. Now we also have wire flow. Wire flow is a combination of flowchart and wireframe, which shows the action or the element that we click or that we're going to perform from a particular screen to the next screen, inside a screen to the next screen. Okay, why a flowchart is like is the diagram, which is the main one, is the diagram that a user takes, or a roadmap that the user takes from beginning of your product to the end of your product. So let's take a look at flowchart symbol. I know you'll be wondering, why is their shape? Why are they different? So now let's take a look at their symbols and what they actually means. Now the first one is the perfect shape, which is this, means terminator, and this marks the end and start of a process. Now where you are trying to create your flowchart for your savings app. So you have to use Terminator because it shows that this is the start and end of a process. Now we have the line flow, which is like the connection between the first shape and the second shape. It's just a connection that shows, okay, from this process down to the next process, from this process down to the next process. The next one we have means input and output, which represents either an input or output operation. So input or output maybe where you need to input any information. For example, when you're trying to sign up on a particular app, you have to put your first name, your last name, your email address, your phone number, and then create a password. So it means an input because you're trying to input something. So it represents either an output or input operation. So this is what it actually means. So when you say in a process where a user need to input some information, so you're going to use this particular shape for it. Now, next one is process, which is a rectangle. It donates a process to be carried. Now, let's say process. Let's say after creating a start, the next one is the line. Then it connects to the input. From the input, you have to use the line again to connect to this particular shape process. Okay, once input, once the if we put input the information, it takes you to the next process. Let's say the next process is now the home page. You get. Now the next one is decision. This stands for decision. What is the decision? It shows you which to follow. Is giving you a yes or no option. Now let's go back to this particular input page. Now let's say a user, when coming back to this particular app, your bank app that you normally use, and you input your username or maybe email address, and then you put the password. So while it's loading, is actually on this stage to know if the information you put is correct. If it's correct, it's going to show you yes and then take you to the next process. But if it shows you no, if it shows no, that means this decision, like this is like a roadblock. It's just like, okay, let me use it. Let's say it's just like you are actually you are actually traveling to another local government or another city, and then you came across police checkpoint or army checkpoint, and then they stop you. You actually know your way to where you are going. Let's say you're from Abuja and you're going to Lokoja, and you actually know your way, and now you meet checkpoint along let's say the boundary between Abuja and Lokoja, and now you are being stopped, and then they will check your your particulars to see if everything is intact. They will check your driver license to see if everything is actually intact. If it's intact and it's correct and it's up to date, they will give you and then you continue your way. But if it's not correct, it's not complete, they will have to delay you and tell you you need to get to so documents before you can actually pass this way. So that is actually the work of decision. So if it's giving you yes and no, so if the details you input is correct, it's going to tell you, okay, go ahead, which is yes, continue your journey. But if it is not correct, it will tell you go back and put the right information before you can actually proceed to the next stage. So that is actually the work of this decision. Now these are the five symbols for you to, whenever you see these five symbols, this is actually what it means. And when you are carrying out or when you are designing your flowchart, this is the 5 symbols that you are going to use. Remember, there are other symbols, but at the beginner stage, these are the 5 most important symbols that you use or that you can use. Okay. Now let's take a look at wireframe. So we are done with flow charts. You know that this is a diagram that map out the user journey when interacting with a product. And we have 3 types of why is it that we have the importance, or why do we use flowchart? We use flowchart as a form of communication tool with other of our team members, and we use flowchart to for we to get the for we to create nice experience for our users. And then we have 3 types of flow charts, which is the task flow, the wire flow, and then we have the flow chart. Okay, and now we have 5 symbols of flow charts. You get. Now once we're done with flowchart, now let's move into wireframing. Now what is wireframing? Introduction to wireframing. We already know what it looks like. We know it look like the skeleton design of a particular product. But what does it mean? Are they benefits? What is the purpose? Do they have any types of flowchart? Because when you say wireframe, I used to see different designs. I used to see some wireframe is like this, some is like this. We know that it is black and white, but it has different pattern. It has different style. Does it mean that I can use anyone at any position? What does it mean? So we're going to take a look and see everything, introduction to wireframe, everything related to wireframing. Now, what is wireframe? Wireframe is a basic outline of of a digital experience, like an app or website used to design at a structural level. Just like the name, they look like they were created with wire and are mostly lines and shape with some text. It is commonly used to lay out content and functionalities of a web, which take into account users' needs and user journey. Now, just like at the beginner stage, before you get down into your main UI design, now once you have done trying to understand your users' problem, and then you are creating problem for them. Now when you're finding a solution for them, now finding a solution, remember we said flowchart fall under where you are finding a solution for your user. Same thing as wireframe. It's just that flowchart comes before your wireframe. It's just that flowchart is actually the journey, the mapping that your user journey. While wireframe is actually a journey, but in this aspect it is it is a diagram that shows how your screen is actually going to look like. It's going to tell you how many screen I'm going to create. It's going to show you what pattern, what style do you want to use for your UI designs. Okay, where do you want to place your button? Where do you want to place your input feed? Where do you want to place your logo? Where do you want to place your call to actions? So all those things is how wireframe will actually just tell you how it just the basic outline of the digital experience. Okay. Now wireframing typically take place at the initial stage of research, user persona development and information architecture, but before the high fidelity design and the prototyping phase. Just like I said, the wireframe comes at the initial stage when you're carrying your user experience, your user research, and then you've created an item and all. So that is where it falls in. It falls in before you will even get to the final stage, before you even do your UI, your main UI design, where you are adding the color, the font choice and all. So that is when wireframe comes in. It tells you how your screen is actually going to look like. Okay. Now once designers have a solid understanding of users' needs, behavior and the overall structure of a product or system, they begin to translate these insights into visual representation. Now, wireframing serves as a bridge between the user experience and the detailed design phase. Now, wireframing stands and okay, I have created my flowchart. Let me interpret this flowchart, or let me convert this flowchart into screens to know how many screens is actually going to come in. And then when I'm translating or designing this into wireframe, I will know, okay, I want to place my button at the bottom, which is actually good, or I want to place my button at the top. You get, you, that is where you will now say, okay, this is in this screen, let's make it this way. Instead of placing the button here, let's place the button here. Instead of placing the logo here, let's place the logo this plate. So it just like, it serves like a bridge of how your user experience is actually going to look like, and how your UI design is actually going to look like. Okay, they can be drawn by hand. You can draw your wireframe with paper and paper and pencil, or you can use the Fig Jam to come up with your wireframing. So wireframing can be drawn by hand or create digitally, depending how more details is required. Let's say you just want to work on a very simple website where you just have to know about this particular business. You don't need to stress yourself using the digital flow, but you can. But if you want to save time and effort, so what you just have to do, you just have to draw your wireframe using paper and pencil. But if you are working on a particular big project, where now you're working on a fintech project, which requires you a mobile app where you have to download on your store before you can use it, you will need to design in digital format, or you can design in paper format. During wireframing, designers create low fidelity, simplified sketch or digital layout that outline the basic structure, layout and functionality of a product interface. This wireframe focus on key elements such as navigation, content placement and interaction points, allowing designers to exploit different design solution and quickly based and like iterate quickly based on feedback. Wireframe serves as a blueprint for the final design, providing a foundation for further refinements and iterations before moving into prototype and development stage. Now, just like we said, it's actually standing like a bridge between user experience and your final stage of how your UI design is actually going to look like. It tells you how your UI is going to look like, and it also tells you how your user experience is going to look like not actually you, but for your user, how their experience, how they're going to interact with that particular product. So it tells you how it can be done. Okay. Now, what are the purpose of wireframe? What are the purpose? Now, it establish the basic structure of a page. Now, the purpose why we designers design wireframe is because it tells us how the structure on this page is going to look like. Do you choose to place your button at the bottom of your screen, or you want to place it at the top of your screen? Just like people that use CUDA, when you're using CUDA, you notice that their button is at the top of their screen, the top right of their screen. Some let's say we have OP button is at the bottom of their screen. So it is either you say, okay, let's make the structure to look like this, or we can make the structure to look like this. You can choose to make your button small, you can choose to make your button big, depending how you want it to be. It's just like wireframe, just like a perfect way for you as a designer to know, okay, let's make the color, let's place the image this way, let's make the button to be to have a sharp end, or to have a curvy end. It's just like the whole structure of how your page is going to look like. Remember I said wireframe focuses on the page, not the yes, entire project, but it is more like how you want this page and this page to look like from the beginning of your product to the end of your product. Okay. Second one is highlights the intended function of the product. Wireframing specific features will clearly communicate to your clients how they will function and what purpose they will serve. For example, the function of a button should be stay clear, and it should drawn it is shown through the way it is drawn. For example, just like what I said, when it comes to knowing the structure of a page, Do you want your button to be very small? Do you want your button to be very long? Do you want your button to have a curvy part? Do you want your button to be have a, remember, OP has a curvy button. My bank app, which is the GT, doesn't have, it's just like a normal button, but it is not long, it is short. Kuda too button is short, which is at the top right. So do you want your button to be in this pattern, or you want your button to be this pattern? Do you want to use this particular, do you want to place your logo on this particular place, or you want to place your logo on this particular place? So it will just tell you the function of how you want this particular product to look like, the function of this particular product, you get. Now it saves times and resources. Let's say for example, when it comes to let's say for example a task was given to you and I said, oh, I want you to come up with a screen for me, let's say a feature where I have to okay, let's say a project where I have to design, you have to carry and come up with a design that give me access to register as a new user, or access to login as an old user, and I come to my dashboard, I can pay for utility bills, I can buy data, and then I can buy airtime. Now these are the features that I want you to design on this particular project, and then you did not do your wireframe and you didn't do your flow chart, and all of a sudden after giving you the task, the first thing you do was just to get into Figma and then start designing. Okay, so once you start designing and then you submit the task back to me, so I'm going to trace out some pattern for you, because this is where you use your high fidelity, your final stage of design, to come up with your task without following the normal due process of creating flowcharts and then wireframe. You find out that when I'm marking this your task, I will say, oh, this particular button you put here, why did you make it like this? Why not place it like this? I'll start finding out some corrections that I'm supposed to tell you. And then once let's say once you've taken note of those corrections, then that is when you will now have to go back to work on this correction, because you didn't follow the normal, like you didn't actually come up with wireframe. Because I said wireframe is just like a bridge for you to know your user, their experience, and how your final stage design. And now you skipped this particular process and then you jump into your final design, and then you submit this task back to me, or you send it back to me as a user for me to say, okay, try using this product to see if it's actually good, if it has a nice experience. And now when I'm interacting with this particular project, I'll find out that a lot of things are actually missing, or a lot of things are not in place, and it's not having a good user experience. And I will come back, I will tell you, this particular product you're trying to build, it doesn't have a good user experience. What you're going to do, you have to go back and start using or start creating wire framing. Now you have actually wasted time in creating high fidelity, and now you will now go back and then start creating wireframe. And once you create, let's say for instance you've create a wireframe, and then you now give me for me to test, and I'll say, okay, this is perfect, and then you start working on the high fidelity of that wireframe. You see that you've spent so much time. Okay, but if I just follow the normal process where I have to create wireframe and then create my wireframe and then give it to me for me to test, and then I create my final design, you will see that I have saved so much time and resources. Okay, and it's cheaper. It will make you not to for you to waste your energy. Now let's say for example, there are some tool out there where you have to make payments before um you can access the tool for you to design your wireframing, and then you don't have money. You can use your pencil and then paper to come up with this particular wireframing, which has actually saved you cost, it has saved you resources, and it's cheaper for you to use your hand to just quickly sketch out something. So these are the purpose of wireframing. Okay. Now the next we're going to take so the next one we are going to look at types of wireframing. What are the types of wireframing? We know we have low fidelity, mid fidelity, and high fidelity wireframing. Before we continue, let's look at what is fidelity. What is fidelity? Fidelity is how closely a design match the look and feel of the final product. Now that is what fidelity actually means. And now let's start defining all the types of wireframing, and then get a look to see how it actually look like. Now, the first one we have low fidelity wireframe. This wireframe has a low amount of complexity and it is less refined. It usually serves as a designer starting point and is used when we want to get ideas quickly. Now, I want to get ideas quickly. What I have to do is just grab my paper and pen and then I will draw my wireframe. It tends to be fairly rough, created without any scale of or sense of scale, grid or pixels accuracy. It is called low fi for short. Okay, now this is how a low fidelity wireframe actually look like. Just like a quickly or a quick sketch of a particular of our particular product that we are trying to be. So just like a quick sketch. It has no structure. Like, yeah, it has a structure though, but it has no color, it has no it has a pattern how we want it to be, but everything is just looking rough. So this is what low fidelity actually look like, and you can call it low fi for short. So whenever you hear me talk or say low fi, just have it at the back of your mind that it actually means low fidelity. Now, the next one we have is mid fidelity. Now, what is mid fidelity? This wireframe feature more accurate representations of a layer, more why they still avoid the distractions such as typography and image. More detail is assigned to specific components and features are clearly differentiated from each other. They are usually created with a digital wiring tool. Now, the first one, which is the low fee, it is created using your paper and pencil. It can be also be created using for those people that have tablets, you can use your notes to and your note on your tablet and then use your pen to just sketch out something. Okay. Now, for mid fidelity, which is more like having it arranged, aligned, but it doesn't have images, it doesn't have color, it doesn't have image. You can use images such as this particular image. You can just use a box to represent image holder, and then it has text, it has icon. It might have an icon, it might not have an icon, you get, but it might just show you in a way it is almost like the high fidelity. It's just going to show you the restructure of how that particular page or that particular design or that particular product is actually going to look like. So here is an example. Here is an example of how a mid fidelity actually look like. And then the last one, which is the high fidelity. What is high fidelity? High fidelity wireframe are detailed representation of the user interface that closely resemble the final product in terms of visual appearance and functionality. High fidelity wireframe include more visual elements such as color, typography, image and interactive components to accurately convey the look and feel of the final project. Now, how high fidelity is almost, when I mean almost, it is less than 90% of how this particular product is actually going to look like before you can do your prototype or before you can hand over those your final project to your developers team. So higher fidelity is almost the look and feel of the product. Yes, it has colored, yes, it has typography, it has image, it has this look and feel. They also incorporate final details such as iconography, button style, form feed, content hierarchy to provide a more comprehensive understanding of the user interface, and they are called HiFi for short. So you can call it HiFi for short. Now here is the image of your final, here is an image of the high fidelity or HiFi wireframe. So this is how it actually look like. Now if you take a look at it, you will see that it is almost the final stage of a UI design, but the only thing left here is just for you to take out the icon and then replace it with image, then and add your brand color. and your brand logo. Okay, now this is how it look like. It's almost like the high fidelity, but just that few things are actually missing. The main color of this particular project. So let's say we are using green, for instance. If you just take out the gray, that gray color, and you place it with the green, you see that the beauty is out. And then you take out the content where they wrote logo, and then you add the logo, brand logo of this particular furniture website, and then you see that this particular design is ready for developers to implement. Now, same thing applies for this particular mobile screen. Now, if you take a look at it, it is almost ready. So the only difference here is that you just need to add your image and your icon and the color, and then you are good to go. So high fidelity is just say 90% of how your final UI is actually going to look like. Okay. Now, what are the benefits of wireframing? So, what are the benefits? Now, wireframing informs the elements to include in your design. So, the benefit of wireframing is to know the kind of elements we are going to include in our designs. Now, wireframe also catches problem early. Now, let's say, for example, you're designing, you're coming up with an idea, and you find out that this idea you already have in mind is actually going to be a problem. So, when you're creating your wireframe, you will discover this problem very early, very early, at the early stage, and then you have to create a solution for that problem that you just discover. Wireframe gets shareholders to focus on the structure. Now it gets wire. That is why I said it's always good to collaborate. You get, and even if you don't have people you want to collaborate, so make sure you do your wireframe, and then maybe you can show an example of the you can show an example of combination of flowchart and wireframe when you have to do wire flow, types of flow. So you have to do it, and then you put it out there and said, okay, I want you guys to go through this. Is it actually a good is it actually a good structure? Is it a good structure? Is it actually a good flow? Is it actually a nice experience? So that is the benefit of wireframe. Now, wireframe allows you to save time and effort. Now, just like what I said when I was explaining, I said when I was explaining the purpose, I said if it's actually in a situation where you don't have money to make payments for some of the wireframing tool, so what you just have to do is you just have to use your pencil and paper to save time. Okay, now you just have to use your pencil and paper to save time. Wireframe allows you to quickly wireframe allows you to quickly iterate quickly. When you want to design, you always need option. Let's say for example, I have designed this particular screen to be like this, and I push it out there to my team or to users, and I said, okay, I want the screen to be like this. A lot of people will give you option and say, okay, why not make this button to be long instead of short? Why not make this button to be at the top instead of at the bottom? Some people will tell you, why not put this logo at the center of the page instead at the left hand side of the page? So they will give you, you will always need options. You get, that is the benefit of wireframe. You're not just designing for yourself, you're designing for your users. So you will need options. Okay. Now let's take a look at the difference between flowchart and wireframe. So what is the difference between flowchart and wireframe? Now let's take a look at the difference. Now, wireframe and flowchart are both essential tools in the UX design process. Both, but they serve they serve different purpose and focus on different aspects of the design. Now, the wireframe are visual representation of a user interface, providing a skeletal outline of a layers, structure and elements within a digital product or system. They focus on the visual and interactive aspects of the design. You get, that is what they actually look like. So wireframe focuses on just the interface and why you are creating, but it also focuses on the user experience. So they're just giving you the structure. You get, it's giving you the layout. It's telling you what elements to use and how it should look like. Okay. Now, wireframe help designers to visualize the user interface and its functionality, allowing them to experience with different design concepts such as the layers and the structure. Essentially, wireframe serves as a blueprint for the final designing. It's just providing guide for you. It serves as a blueprint. Okay, how do you want your final UI design to look like? Wireframe is going to tell you how it should look like. So that is the difference between why that is the summary definition of wireframe. Now let's take a look at flowchart. Flowchart is just a diagram that show you the sequence of steps, action and decision points within the process. So it's just like a roadmap of a particular project, of the entire project. It's just like a map for you. Let's say I want to travel to from Abuja to Port Harcourt and I don't know my way. Google Map will help you do that. Google Map will not tell you what you're going to encounter. It's just going to show you the road you're going to follow, and then you have to follow it. So that is the work of flowchart. But for wireframe, it tells you how the structure of a particular screen or page is going to look like. Okay, so that is the difference between wireframe and flowchart. Now, in summary, wireframe are concerned with the visual and interactive aspects of a user interface, providing a detailed representation of its layers and structure, while flowchart focuses on the logical flow of tasks or information within the process, helping designers to understand and utilize the user's journey. Both wireframe and flowchart play vital roles in the design process, working together to create cohesive and user-centered digital experience. So if you work with flowchart and if you work with wireframe, you have to create a good and great user experience. So thank you guys for listening and watching. Bye. See you on next class.